YouTube and LinkedIn. We're about to start the Gillmor gang. Hello, gang. Hello, gang. Hello, people, if you're tuning in. Okay. Let me get Steve on a single here. All right. And mute is off. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and.
Hi, Steve Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor Gang. Joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, or thereabouts, is Brent Leary. Welcome, Brent.
Thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
How so?
Just saying it. You gotta just take the face value and move on.
I like
Put the guy on the spot.
I know. Oh, you like the hat?
Is that a
Jamie?
Marlin? Is that,
Yeah.
that's a Philadelphia hat, isn't it?
Wrong.
Kind of
is.
looks like a P from here. I'm just kidding.
It's the original Rams logo.
All right.
A fun fact: the Rams were the first professional, or maybe even any football team, to put a logo on their helmet. So,
Wow.
Look where it got the Redskins. I'm sorry, the Commanders.
It's like they invented NFTs.
oh God. Moving on.
Good luck trying that. Joining us from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is Dennis Pombriant.
Greetings. How are you all today? I would just like to note that although Brent is somewhere in Atlanta, he's really part of Rams Nation.
Wait a minute. There is such a thing. How did I not know about that?
I'm blessing it. I'm making it. I'm making it a thing.
It's a thing.
Okay.
Joining us from the Seattle, Washington area is Michael Markman.
How do you do? Glad to be here. Glad you're all here.
All right.
Good?
Yes.
Okay.
Beautiful.
From Palo Alto, California is Keith Tier.
Hey, everybody from all over the place. Welcome to Palo Alto.
Can you turn your mic up a little bit?
I can lift it up a little bit. It's
I
one
had
of
a
these.
girlfriend from Palo Alto in the 60s.
Too much information there, Frank.
Just saying.
Couldn't say it better.
Was
Okay,
your wife,
and
did your wife know about that at the time?
In the 60s, I don't think she was around at the time.
okay, and that's Frank Radis in London.
Hello, London. Good night and good luck.
Edward R.
Is that
Murrow.
Churchill or Mountbatten?
No, that was Murrow.
Sounded like Piece of Fog.
Okay. And let's see. All right. So the interesting things today are.
Wait a minute. Did we miss one introduction?
No, I don't think so. I'm looking at all the people on the screen.
Did I just miss Michael Markman's introduction?
Yes,
Yeah.
you did.
You may
How did I
have.
do that?
It was not memorable.
It was placid. He was glad to be here. He was glad we were here.
Oh, I remember it now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Lake Placid. It was Lake Placid,
It's
1967.
like Washington.
It's only 2 days till the Super Bowl, so the space in Brent's head to remember anything is shrinking rapidly.
No, see, Michael, he didn't
So
have a shtick. Everybody else had some sort of a shtick, but Michael was just, hey, I'm here.
Yeah. Well,
It's hard to do that.
Frank is miming something.
Yeah, no, I have a question for Brent.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
sure. What is it?
It's about the Super Bowl, Brent.
Oh, man.
It's about the halftime show.
Mhm.
What do you think of that?
oh,
What do you think of that? I'm of a couple of minds about it.
It's a
And you-
variety show. The halftime show is like there's no one that really stands out, so we'll have 6 people.
I don't know. I think there may be some I don't know if shenanigans is the right word, but I think there may be some political statements being made from that
I
group.
think shenanigans is the right word. I'm worried about the halftime show, but
I'm
maybe,
worried that
maybe
we're-
that's just
I'm worried that we're not going to find out what the hell you're talking about.
Can we say who's in the halftime show?
okay. Well, the halftime show it'll be the first time that hip hop and rap has done the entire show. I think I don't remember that the entire halftime show has ever been devoted to a single genre of music, or I'm not sure of that, but it's certainly the first time that hip hop has had the entire show. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know Eminem is in it. I know that Snoop
Dre.
Dogg is one of the headliners. Dre is in it.
Ice Cube.
Mary J. Blige, Ice-T. I mean, it's a superstar. The superstars of hip hop are in it, and I was going through a bunch of their various songs today, trying to find one that I felt I could post on my pretty generic newsletter, and I kept going, not that one. Not that one. So consequently, my sense is that not unlike the Brit Awards, by the way, there will be somebody with a very fast finger on a 7-second delay. I believe. What do you think about that?
Well, I think you're going out on a limb there, but
What limb would that be? That limb is like 17 inches around.
Now, wait a minute. Now,
I
wait a
think that's
minute.
going to be a really exciting.
Oh, stop
halftime.
it. I do too. But there has also been a lot of talk about the extra security and at the stadium. I don't know if the extra security is there because they're worried that there will be some issues with people with COVID or COVID related issues, or if they believe that there might be some tendency because of today's sort of current historic climate that there might be some violence, or that the halftime show might incite something. I don't know.
No, but, well, for somebody who doesn't know, you're positing a hell of a long list of possible terrible things that might happen.
Yeah. I mean, you got to remember, these guys are all at this point in time, they're like in their mid 50s. It's not like these dudes are still NWA from the early 90s. I mean,
and they don't. My guess is
that's true.
They don't represent. Certainly, my rap loving 19-year-old doesn't listen to any of those people.
They don't know these dudes. These guys are like,
there's a couple of them
was born. I
They're
mean,
the OG.
and then there's in his mid 40s or whatever.
But there's a couple, that Brent. There's a couple of younger artists in there, and they're the ones that I actually had more difficulty.
Kendrick Lamar is like, he's been out for like 10, 15 years at this point. There's like no one that's really brand new here. The Super Bowl, they've been through this before. I'm guessing they know what they're getting with these guys. They're not, I mean, Snoop Dogg is, what is he, 50 at this point? I mean, and he's got so many.
He's older than 50.
He's like, they all got all these interests. It's really not in their interest to go crazy and do something ridiculous. I mean, Dre is like a billionaire, for crying out loud. I mean, and Ice Cube is, hundreds, millions of heirs or whatever. And
speaking of that, didn't Snoop Dogg just buy, was it Death Row Records? Or he just bought one of the big rap labels. So you're right. These guys do have, many of them do have, I swear I just saw Ice-T in a commercial today for, I don't know, some kind of insurance company.
That's Ice-T and it's the wrestler, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, all these dudes are old. They're not trying to do anything crazy.
Well, so to put it another way, this ain't street. This is entertainment. This is big business. This is not Super Bowl meets the street. This is Super Bowl meets the now fully house trained music business.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess all they needed would be Will Smith to come out with DJ Jazzy Jeff, and there you go.
I'm so glad.
Even look at Eminem. Eminem used to be kind of risky, but now is he risky now? No, not a bit.
I don't know. I think you lose some of your edge when you getting ready to get on Medicare. I mean, serious about that.
I don't know. I still have my edge, and I'm never mind.
Has the halftime show ended, except maybe for a wardrobe malfunction?
What?
Say that again.
You've
Mike.
got to sort of.
Has the Super Bowl halftime
audio.
show ever been edgy? It's not their brand to be edgy, except
No, it hasn't.
perhaps during a wardrobe malfunction.
No, but the reason we're discussing it is because Frank is concerned, let's say, that this may be one step beyond.
Well, at this point, we're discussing it because Keith keeps talking about what Frank.
Yeah, I was ready to drop it after Brent said, "Nah, these guys are all in their 50s." I was like, "Yeah, you're right. Forget it."
So don't.
So there you go. That's
Just
it.
keep
No more.
moving. Nothing to see here.
What? Yeah.
But I'm
Okay. Then how about the Olympic ratings tanking? What do we think about that?
Take two. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's see how that
How
goes.
about those? How about those Olympic ratings? What do we think about that?
well, tell us what they are first.
Bad.
They're terrible. They're like 45, 50% below the worst they've ever been for a Winter Olympics. And I question a couple of things, whether it's a boycott because of China, whether it's because NBC's not doing a very good job, or because there's no excitement. Nobody's really talking about it. I don't know what it is, but it
Could be all
strikes
of the
me-
above, It could be all of the above.
Yes.
And I mean,
It is
there are
something.
lots of factors. There's time zones. The fact that it's flipped over in terms of where the U.S. audience is and where China is, so the time zones don't mesh up. You've got the rise of cable. What if you add Peacock to NBC?
Well,
what do you get?
That's
What-
it.
what-
You
what
get
about the fact
from
that-
what I hear that Peacock is having all sorts of technical problems. I hear. I have not watched it on Peacock, but I have been following some comments made by friends of mine who either watch Peacock or get Peacock. There's been a lot of signal dropping and buffering and lots of things that people are complaining about. And I don't think that's very good, A, for the brand, or B, for the Olympics itself.
I think.
By the way,
I think it might be related to the fact that USA is only number 6 in the medal table, and Americans are not that interested in Germany, Norway, Netherlands, Sweden, and Austria, who are 1 through 5.
But but all the factors that Frank raised and Keith's factor, I think they're all adding up to it. You've got a situation where, because of China's COVID restrictions, there's not a lot of hoopla around the Olympics to cover. You've got the U.S. diplomatic boycott. You've got the NBC anchor crew anchoring from, where is it, Connecticut? Where are they sitting?
Yeah.
Connecticut.
Yeah, no, they're in Connecticut. Yeah.
Wow.
So
But
it all
sounds
feels
like
a
they're
little
right
odd.
there.
But
Yeah.
but if you're interested in the events, if you're interested in those sports, it's what it always is. It's people competing at the top of their ability, doing some amazing things.
Yeah.
All right. Can I?
Anyway, that's it. I got nothing else.
Just
I
out of
haven't watched a
interest,
minute of it.
when you guys look at the medal table, do you rank it in order of goals or in order of total medals?
This is a level of detail that I am not.
I haven't even looked, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'll be honest. I haven't looked either. And
Okay, we
and
got to give
here in the UK,
people a little room, a little oxygen to be able to say some things. Dennis.
You're muted.
May I say that I don't know anything about TV production values, but these Olympics are pretty boring. And it seems to me when the Olympics were good, they'd have a lot more jumping and cutting from one event to another, so that you really only got the highlights, the when an American was going to win a medal or something. With the possible exception is the women doing snowboarding. They are fantastic, and acrobatic skiing. They're fantastic. I could watch them all day, but there's just an awful lot of nothing going on. And if you do what I do, I record it, and then we speed through the commercials. And I've never seen so many commercials aligned in the I don't know what you call it, the band at the bottom of the TV. There must be a commercial every 4 minutes, and it's impossible with that much interruption. It's impossible to get up any kind of head of steam, any momentum to enjoy what you're watching, I think.
Okay, Frank. So
well,
how's that
that's
Olympic thing going?
Can I add
Well,
something?
no, I think that Dennis makes a really good point. That's an issue that is sort of permeating the whole streaming world of advertiser or subscription. Which would you rather have? But problem is with broadcasting is there's too many commercials. I don't know if any of you have, because I watched the Today Show, but the Today Show seems like it's every segment is we'll be right back right after this. It's hard to watch. And I see that a lot on broadcast television.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Tina,
you had something to say, and then I'm going to interrupt.
Different than most streaming, which I love streaming. I found that I don't like the way that the Olympics are being served up to me, I guess through Comcast. I find it confusing. I would rather just have a live stream of what's going on. I go to the menu and there's just too much. And whenever I choose something, it's not piquing my interest and I just fall off of it. I just can't get it. So somehow the streaming and all the different options of the way to view the different events has kind of killed the excitement for me.
You're not into the curling then, Tina?
No. Yeah.
So I don't care what
Curling.
happens to Peacock at all. I think Peacock is, last on my list of things that I care about. As to, my problem with the Olympics is it takes away from me trying to find something interesting on Netflix.
The quadruple jump by the 15-year-old Russian skater was pretty outstanding. That kind of stands out as being super.
Is that the girl who may be banned?
She may be banned because she was taking a heart regulation medicine, which apparently is illegal. I think that would be a shame because she's clearly really good. And I doubt the medication had much to do with how good she is. I think it might be years of training.
Okay. Next subject, please.
I would like to know from the gang who are content creators themselves, tell me what you're doing with your newsletters. I've reached a kind of a moment with mine where I'm contemplating why I do it and what the value is. And Frank, you do one. Steve, you do one. Dennis, I think you used to do one, but do less now, or I'm not getting it.
No, I used to do two.
Yeah. So what's going on in, I noticed that Substack, Steve mentioned last week, is introducing video as a media type into a newsletter. Brent, you've talked about possibly doing one. And I think a lot of people watch the show are in that kind of space where they produce stuff, even if it's only tweets. So what are you all thinking about your own, what you're going to do in 2022 when it comes to being a creator?
This is the cricket sound that we hear when I bring it up.
Well, I could tell you, I'm not gonna. I don't like working for free, and I think newsletters are kind of a poor man's way to work for free, if that's possible. It just occurred to me that one of the reasons we are at such loggerheads in the country is everybody wants to talk and nobody wants to listen. And newsletters, in a way, contribute to that kind of situation. I don't have time to read everybody's newsletters. I've got work to do. I'm doing just fine in my creative world, writing, doing market research and writing reports.
Do you publish those or are they like only to corporate clients?
They get published.
Yeah. But
they get published usually through a corporate client, or, last summer I did an article for Harvard Business Review, and I've done other stuff that's been covered by Forbes.
So you and Brent, in a way, represent opposite business models. Because Brent, I don't know if this is true because I've never discussed it with you, but when I watch your show and you pull all these people onto it who are very important in the CRM space, you must have a business model underneath that, where the free stuff is good for whatever that business model is, whereas Dennis is saying the free stuff isn't really that good.
I think a couple of reasons why I do a lot of the video stuff. One, I'm interested in what's going on and who's involved and what's involved, and it's good for me, from a perspective that allows me to have a better grasp of what's going on and to be able to kind of use that to try to get some engagements of whatever sort. And some of the things I do come from directly from those kind of people seeing that on video and reaching out and saying, hey, could you help us with this, or we'd like to get your perspective on that. And some of it becomes advisory and some of it becomes like traditional thought leadership kind of stuff. But it's the free stuff is, I guess, maybe just an entry into an opportunity for deeper levels of engagement. And
loss leader.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's, I guess you got to do certain things to, the get, your lead generation or whatever. It's not traditional. A lot of this stuff, for me at least, I don't really go about it like some kind of systematic way. It's more like, oh, I think this is going to be interesting, or I am definitely interested, or yeah, I need to know more about this. So who can I bring on to talk about it? And instead of me having to read a lot, I get a chance to ask these folks questions that are like already deeply involved in different areas. And so that allows me to kind of accelerate my learning process as opposed to, trying to read a whole bunch of stuff. Because like Dennis, I just don't have a lot of time to do that.
But how do you put money in the bank? I mean, sponsorship would be a way, but I'm guessing that's a conflict for you. I don't know.
I do some things. I do research projects, for vendors and I never do anything that, is like considered, cheerleading for vendors. I have subject matters I'm interested in. If it aligns with what they're focused on and they, want to do some collaboration around that, that's great. As long as I get to talk about the subject matter and not about your product, that works for me. But yeah, I mean, some of it is, well, it used to be blogging. I don't do a lot of that blogging anymore, but the last couple of years, it's really about how do you kind of leverage this video format to get messaging or provide, insights or provide a perspective that allows them to, kind of piggyback onto this casual conversational style of doing thought leadership as opposed to the traditional kind of stiffer forms that we've had to do over, the previous couple of decades. But now with streaming and with the ability to bring lots of people together and have these kind of discussions that draw attention, which is what they basically want in the end, is how do we engage with the kind of folks that we want to, that potentially we could do business with. Some of those folks are reading white papers still, but a whole group, another class of potential prospects of customers are doing this kind of stuff, or they're looking for easily consumable ways to understand what's going on. And I think that's probably one of the things that where it helps me, because I'm like that too. I don't want to, I mean, if there's something that I can learn from a couple of conversations as opposed to reading a whole bunch of white papers, I'd rather just have a couple of conversations and then dig into some things that come out of those conversations, as opposed to, all right, let me start with 10 white papers over here, which I no doubt, even having written them, I know I'm not going to read those things.
So that's actually aligned with Dennis, which is it's too much hard work to do it that way.
It's too time consuming. I mean, when you got all these other things to do, I mean, Steve and I had a really good conversation. Was that just yesterday?
Feels like it.
Yeah. part of the challenge with doing this stuff, like this video stuff here, it's so easy to turn on, hit a button, go live, be on for hours at a time. You might have some really great stuff in those 2 hours, but once you end the broadcast, that's where the hard work begins. Now you got to figure out, you got to go through all this stuff. And if I've got like 3 or 4 hours of video every week, it sounds like, oh, that's cool. No, it's not really all that cool, because most people are not going to sit and watch every minute of your live stream. They get scared off. They look at the video and say, oh my God, this is 2 hours long. Next. And so there's definitely good stuff in there, but you have to make it so easy for them and so attractive for them to want to dig in. So you have to actually go through your whole 3 hours of video to try to pull out like the most attractive 2-minute snippet. Tina knows about this.
Oh yeah.
And so you got to look at all that stuff just to find the 2 minutes. Then you got to pull the 2 minutes out, and you want to do about, try 3 or 4 of those snippets within that 3 hours. So that means you got to do all sorts of looking and editing and cleaning it up. And then you want to try to make it attractive enough for them to not only watch the 2-minute clip, but then to say, man, that was a 2-minute clip. That was great. I need to learn more. And then you get them to go and watch the full. That's a long, hard, drawn out process. And it only gets longer and harder if you do more of these things.
So if I tell you my version of that, ignoring the details of my specific situation and what I do it for, I'm going to guess you've got similar things. So I do a newsletter and video for free every week. And where I sit in my ecosystem is I'm trying to, my business model is roughly this. I meet startups that I think are going to be big 5 years from now. They find me. I do a deal with them where I buy their stock at the current price when they're small. But I agree with them that I'll only be able to be allowed to write the check if I can help them get big. And so we usually put in place something like, if they raise $25 million, then I get the right to write that check for those shares that were priced, 2 years ago. And usually what that means is I work mentoring the founder. We raise money through 1, 2, 3 rounds of financing. The company becomes very valuable. In one case, I still have the right to write a check, which is about $400,000, and the shares on paper now are worth about $12 million, and I haven't written the check. And so the stuff that I do for free isn't really for free, because I'm doing it to try to be interesting enough to those founders and have points of view and be plugged into what's going on enough that I'm relevant to them, so that they then want me to help them, which usually I can. And they end up being very happy that I did. And I end up being able to buy shares, much cheaper than would otherwise be the case. And I actually don't get to write the check until later. So I don't have to write the check up front. So it's a win-win. So when you see that was the week, or when you see my newsletter, and you wonder, well, why is he doing this? It's really to make myself interesting, or at least do the best I can, so that I can do all this other stuff. I have about 30,000 readers across LinkedIn, Medium, Review, Substack, and at the center of it all, I have a WordPress website called thatwastheweek.com, where all the links point to. And when I look on the review, I can see who's reading it. And it is kind of a list of founders and investors, actually, mainly, that I focus on. So I kind of make sure that what I speak about is relevant to them. So that, in a way, is a business model. And the great thing is it doesn't really cost me anything. And I've got all the different media types at my disposal. And I don't write that much. Actually, I write an editorial, which takes me maybe half an hour. Everything else in the newsletter is good stuff written by other people way more intelligent than I am. So I think in there somewhere is a business model that is appropriate to all of you guys as well, because you're all brilliant in whatever it is you're doing.
I think I take a little bit of what you Keith, and what you, Brent, were talking about. I think I get a little bit of both of you guys and why I do what I do. I more or less am the Hyman Roth of newsletters, is the retired businessman living on a fixed income. I have a lot of time on my hands. However, I do find myself finding stuff for that newsletter from the minute I've published it, usually about 8 o'clock in the morning, my time, all the way through the night, including waking up at 3 in the morning because I had an idea to write it down, or because my phone beeped and it's a great story from Variety that I want to include. And so I'm literally constantly churning this stuff out. It's an all-day process for me. First of all. Second of all, the idea for me, especially with review, Keith, what you were talking about, is being able to see who it is that's engaging with you every day. That's the sort of the first thing that I do when I get up in the morning, is go and look at the analytics and see who it was and who was most interested in what stories were they interested in. And it also ranks the stories and the videos from 1 to whatever, 15 or 16, depending on how many I've published that day. So I get a list of these people, and I want to be able to reach a certain kind of individual. So people who are currently executives at television networks or at the streaming companies, or educators that are teaching journalism or production, or people who are involved in the advertising world. And those are the kinds of people that I'm going for. And quite honestly, those are the kinds of people that I've managed to get. Now, like you, but not like you, Keith, I don't have 30,000 followers, but I have about 12 or 15,000 followers across 5 or 6 social media. And I use the newsletter in all of those places. And so so in the lower right-hand corner of review, you can see where people have gotten the story. So did they get it from LinkedIn, or did they get it from review, or did they get it from Twitter? So so what it says to me is that, and what Brent said, which I thought was exactly the sort of the key reason for me, is to continue to be relevant. And so my research that I put into it is my reading. And so that keeps me in the game. And then getting it out there and seeing who's engaging with it keeps me engaged with that audience, which is important to me. And then in the end, for example, later this week, on the 17th, I'm hosting a panel for the Savannah College of Arts and Design Television Festival with people in social media, in network sales, in the individual who marketed the launch of Discovery Plus, the chief of strategy for Paramount Plus. So I've got some really good people, but these people they might have said, yes, sure, I'll do it because I know them. But they also said, yes, I do it because I see what it is you're following and you're writing about. So to me, that keeps me sort of down a path that continues a certain amount of relevance. And also it keeps me out of a sincerely great deal of trouble every day.
That's what she said.
Except for those times when my wife gets really angry at me because I've been sitting there going, oh God, that's a great story. Let me say, honey, I need to talk to you. Just a minute. So that gets me in a lot of trouble. But I'm not going to stop. I will say though, I have been toying with the idea of not doing it every day. It's really hard to do this every single day. And each day I also try and write some type of editorial content, which, usually doesn't happen until 7 o'clock in the morning because I didn't want to write something that wasn't relevant for the coming day. But I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to cut back. But that has been something I've been thinking about. And I actually think that the fact that we're already into 2022 means I probably won't do it until 2023. That's it.
So Steve, I think this is the most relevant topic for you because you've got the newsletter, you've got the gang, you've got the sneak peeks. Increasingly, Clubhouse plays a role. So talk about the gang 2022 and its presence across all these different networks and where you're going to go with it.
I have no idea. Seriously.
Do you want some advice?
Not sure. No.
You can always ignore the advice.
Okay. Well,
if you don't take the advice, you'll definitely ignore it.
Right.
And we forgot to mention this is an intervention, Steve. We all talked before.
Yeah, no, luckily I've got the leave button here. So, I'm not trying to be coy. I just literally do not know the answer to this, but I think every day all of us are waking up and trying to figure out the answer to, what is it that we're doing and how is it going to keep us safe and, protect our jobs or our, enhance our careers. Everything that you guys have already talked about, I fundamentally understand and agree with. There are differences between the implementations of what you're doing, but I find it, fundamentally the reason I do any of this is because I find it interesting. It's better than Peacock, for example. And I'm trying to hit on Peacock because I know that it's one of the massive corporations that Frank, you've worked for, namely NBC. It's just that, there's so much information that is not being processed and dumbed down for the amount of time that we have to be able to absorb it. That's what's broken for me is there's just too much information and too little compression into insight. Raw information is just, as Brent said, it's, the problem is after the show, not during the show. The show's got value for those. There are people I know who just basically, they leave this, it's like if it was at night, it would be a night light for them. It's enough light for them to be able to not watch it. But if something piques their interest, that's likely to have some actionable result at some point. So I think that's the so-called business model, if there is one, is compression of, information and misinformation into enough of a stream that you can stand as you're trying to do whatever else it is that you do to keep the lights on.
Have any of you used this same set of tools for, monetizable closed groups? For example, I know I could, if I wanted, I could do a founder set of meetings about how to tell your story to investors. And it would be very high value. And I probably could, get paid for that if I wanted to. And all these tools would be exactly the right tools to use to do that. And so you have kind of a public persona, but then a private use case with the same tools where you're making money. Have any of you done that?
I sort of do that, but instead of accepting money, the end result of all of the stuff is to either speak at an event or to moderate a panel or to be a part of a group, whatever the discussion is. My choice is, rather than monetize it, I just say, fly me there first class, put me in a great hotel and take care of me while I'm there. And then let me use this as a way to engage with people that I find interesting and who also find maybe what I've done interesting enough for them to ask me to come and do that. So in a way I'm doing that, but I'm not using it as a way to create or generate revenue. I suppose I could, but I just don't choose to.
Yeah, I did a talk this week to it's an African-based company out of Nigeria that does cross-border money transfers for business. If you're buying something from outside of Africa, you need to pay for it, or you're selling something outside of Africa, you need to get paid. The company is called Verto FX, and their management team asked me to do a talk called Characteristics of a Good Startup, and they offered to pay me, and I said no, I'll do it for free, because actually the value of free, for me at least, feels like higher than anything I could get paid. What's the most you could get paid for an hour of your time? Well, I pay lawyers $1,200 an hour, so let's assume that's the most. Although I know there's personalities who can get $40,000, $50,000 for doing a speech, but most of us are not that. So if you compare getting $1,000 versus doing it for free and the goodwill that comes with that and what might flow from it, the free is actually more valuable than the paid.
I feel I agree with
if you're
that.
if you're being paid by a single entity, that may be, if you did something that was on a subscription basis and said, this is a seminar I'm putting on and you can buy into it here. I don't know how many people would sign up, but you could charge less than $1,200 and make more than $1,200.
When TechCrunch was happening and we started to do TechCrunch, I think it was called TechCrunch 40, the first one. I forget. I think there was even one before that. But we started to do events. And at first, the events were at Mike's house and they were free. And we bought beer and we flipped burgers and stuff like that. And the fourth one of those, like 1,000 people showed up. So we started, so you couldn't do that anymore. We started doing events and we started charging for the events. My wife used to run all the backstage logistics of, running Techcrunch Disrupt, and it's a lot of work. And at that time, every startup on the planet in the Web 2.0 world wanted to talk to TechCrunch. And I always thought TechCrunch should monetize the magnet that it represented for startups through a fund. I thought they should have raised a fund and invested in the best startups. And there was always this problem that a journalist would be conflicted if they started investing. And so we made money from events and sponsorships, which, caps out at around $10 million-ish a year in those days. So you're never going to become a $100 million revenue company with events, but with investing, you could become a $1 billion company. So to me, it's like this world of if you're interesting enough to people who benefit from you, and how do you turn that into value, is an unanswered question. I think it's an ongoing question. I think this creator economy, in a way, is all emerging because we all kind of have that question in the back of our minds all the time.
It's also coming into view because some creators become stars in their universe, and they do make hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars a year doing what we do, but in a more interesting way.
Yeah, but they get kicked off of Spotify too.
Well, that's
but then get offered another $100 million from a right-wing organization.
well, you can either
he couldn't take that.
Sorry, Frank.
I was going to say he couldn't take that offer anyway. He had already signed up to Spotify.
But you can either sell your expertise or knowledge, or you can sell your audience. You know, obviously, people with a large audience in the millions can sell their audience, and they may have no expertise and they'll still do very well. People who have expertise or knowledge or relationships, you know, are important because of those. And you can still do very well as well if you can figure out how to not become a sleazy salesman, but actually contribute.
If you sell that audience, I think you go down a really bad path.
Well, people do that. I mean, look.
I know, yeah, but it just seems wrong to me. I would not want to take it. I would not want to sell the audience that follows me on my newsletter.
You spent most of your career working for advertising supported broadcast entities, and that's the business they're in. They sell their audience.
Yeah.
So what flipped?
Well, what flipped is that at no time did I have just an audience of people who were influential to me in my world. They were an audience that was much larger and filled with many people whom I did not know. And selling that audience did not bother me one bit. Selling the audience of the people that I know and trust and respect would bother me.
So it's a difference between selling strangers and selling friends.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, actually, it's not just friends, but more like people whom I respect, not necessarily friends. There are a lot of people that I respect that I'm not friendly with,
and some friends and future friends.
Maybe, but some of whom are already engaging with me, and I'm serious. I would never want to take advantage of I'd say 3/4 of my audience. Maybe there's a quarter that I would, but that would probably only pay me about a quarter, so it's not worth it.
Yeah, my version of that is I get people all the time saying, "Will you introduce me to fill in the blank venture capitalist?" And I always say, "Well, only if I believe in what you're doing. So what are you doing?" And I kind of drill down into it, and I'll make introductions where I actually believe that the person I'm introducing them to should be interested in the thing, otherwise I won't. And even then, I do it like, you know, I never introduce the person without asking permission of the person that they're being introduced to first, and they say yes, and then I connect them. So I also think the value of an introduction is close to zero. You get all these people who try to make money from making introductions, like, I don't know, finder's fee type thing. I have never ever thought that an introduction has any value, because unless the person you're being introduced to is stupid, they're going to assess you based on what you bring to the table, not on who introduced you.
Well, the idea of introducing somebody and then not being a part of that conversation during and after the introduction. So just saying, I'll introduce you to this person. I often get that happens on LinkedIn all the time. Can you please introduce me to so-and-so? And I might ask some questions about what it is you're trying to pitch and why do you want to meet these people? But and of course, then you have to go to that person and say, hey, I'm going to introduce you to such and such. Do what you will. Talk amongst yourselves. that is totally to me a worthless endeavor.
Now, if you look around this table, a virtual table, and you ask, who do these people know? And if you could do a metadata overlay coming out with little labels of all the people we know, it's a really impressive group of people. And if you did another one that had what do we know, as in knowledge, it's another really impressive set of topics. So you got topics and people. So what is the latent value of these 6 people is a big number. So then these tools are merely instruments that help us navigate that in a way, I think.
Well, then Steve should monetize this and split the money with us.
Just tell me what to do.
Frank wants a coffee mug.
But
I've been asking for a coffee.
That's all you're gonna get.
Hey, you want me to take 10 minutes and show you why it's not there? Here's a first
No,
example.
Frank got a coffee mug when we visited him in London.
Yeah, no, I know. He's
He
complaining
just threw it out.
because he really wants a jacket. I understand.
Yeah, it's
It's
the
all
satin,
about swag, basically.
It's the satin tour jacket with the big Elvis TCB and a flash thing on the back of it. That's
Not Elvis, Beatles. Thank you.
Okay.
One time in the Improv, I saw the most impressive tour jacket in my life. It was the Sophie Tucker World Tour, and someone had made it up as a gag, I presume, but it was hilarious.
Trying to see what that hat said.
Unless they were following Sophie Tucker's world tour.
Well, when she was touring, I don't think they had satin touring jackets. So
tweed. It was tweed.
So
I don't think they had a list of dates on the back.
So how's this going for you, Keith? Do you think you're getting somewhere?
No, I think we just kind of, that half an hour, we'll never get it back, will we?
No, I
That's
like it
usually
too.
what.
I just don't think that
That's usually
I don't think we have done the analysis of what part of the last hour is useful.
So once the broadcast is over, then we need to dig in, right? Is that what you're saying?
That's the problem. Is Brent and I have been discussing. The show is X length, and then the discussion about the show is impossible.
Yeah.
I think I would only say that I think the show is going so well that Steve is ready to go fishing.
Or
Exactly.
listening to the Beatles.
I have to ask the fundamental marketer's question. Useful to whom? Who is the show useful? If you figure that out, you figure out who is the customer, then you can figure out.
Well,
how to charge
I
them.
think the customer identifies themselves. I've never had any doubt that what we and others are doing is useful to people, because there's enough metadata that comes off of the analytics of these technologies for you to be able to see, maybe not in large numbers, but in the percentage change of numbers, you can really understand what's gaining attention, what's what was that number that you were talking about, the total
Who was talking about?
Brent, the total number
Total
of
viewing minutes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very interesting indicator, because for reasons that Brent can probably explain better than I can.
Well, just from my perspective, a lot of times when you talk to marketers about stuff, about potentially sponsoring something or doing something, and when you talk about video, usually they ask you about views, total views or whatever. I'm like, that's not for me at least, that's not the right one, because all these platforms measure a view in different things. Like, I think YouTube, a view is 30 seconds, whereas Facebook and LinkedIn, I think it's 3 seconds. So what good is a 3-second view? I mean, it sounds good maybe, but it really isn't. What I was more interested in is like, is anybody actually watching this? And so I always look at the total viewing minutes because it's kind of, views can be different across the platform, but total viewing minutes, that's the same. So at least, if you're saying somebody's watching 1,000 views versus 1,000 minutes, well, at least the 1,000 minutes is usually measured in, the same way, whereas the views, they're not. So I always
if you're on YouTube and you look at their analytics, they will show you that you get total view time, and you can also see where people drop off. So if you put up a 12-minute video, you can see whether people made it through 2 minutes of it, or 4 minutes of it, or 8 minutes of it. And you can, if you're interested in using your analytics to analyze your program, you can learn stuff.
Absolutely.
I would also,
you
also add that one person may not be equal to another person, because the value of maybe a decision maker at a company is different than someone who is, I don't know, like there's different value in different people.
Absolutely. I know for me, LinkedIn gives you certain numbers that, well, for me, that's pretty important because the audience is mostly aligned with LinkedIn with kind of who I want to engage with. So you've got total viewing minutes, you've got how many times it's been shared, how many times there's reactions, how many comments, because those are the engagement metrics that are becoming really important. For example, like this week, I did 2 things this week: CRM players and a one-on-one interview. And with those 2 things, and that was like Tuesday and yesterday. So it hasn't been a lot of time. But just those 2 broadcasts have accumulated over 30 total viewing hours in terms of all the minutes. So that tells me somebody is paying attention to this stuff. And then you can kind of look at, they give you the top 10 companies, views by company, which tells you another thing. And then it gives you the top views by roles, which tells you another thing. And then it gives you, by geographic locations. And then you have your comments and stuff like that. So at least you're starting to get a sense of people are watching, people from these companies are watching, these people that have these roles are watching. And that kind of gives you something to go on.
And all that data is from LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's not to the point where, oh, this person from this company with this role is watching, which would be perfect if you do that. But at least you're getting a sense. Yeah. But the biggest thing for me is if there's over 30 total viewing hours over these 2 things, there's something there. And at least like it gives me enough to feel like, all right, I should keep going with this.
And I think that key is it's about the analytics. I mean, as I said earlier, and you just reinforced it. For me, it's about the analytics, and used to be people would actually talk about a click, or they would talk about an impression, or they would talk about a view. But the deeper and the more involved the analytics are for you as a creator, the better I think your creating will become, because you can start to base your things off of those analytics, targeting and such.
To me, the analytics are most interesting as validators of what my impression is of what's going on. And as I said before, the delta between the percentage change up or down, sideways, whatever, those kinds of things start to stand out over time. And there's I forget her name, a researcher at I believe she's still at Microsoft, who coined a phrase, continuous partial attention. And, that sounds like a
That's
misnomer.
Linda Stone. You're talking about Linda Stone.
That's correct. Exactly.
Right? And she's not at Microsoft anymore, but
well, let me make the point that I was going to
okay.
make. Okay, thanks. That behavior, I think, is one of the most interesting aspects of this platform that Keith has been kind of trying to tease out here. What he calls creator economy, or what people call that, I don't think really gets to it. What continuous partial attention means, that there's there's something that's going on that is in the cracks between roles and authority and popularity and all of these measures. There's something about that we all share in terms of how do we survive this awful time that we're in, and in retrospect, what are the things that that we identify as being useful and meaningful to us. That's why when we talk about the streaming shows, it sounds like it's, off there and, what are we doing to entertain ourselves while we wait for the apocalypse? In fact, it's those brands, identities, who do we trust and how do we find them is an underlying structure for this free-for-all that we're in. And, I think that the so-called meritocracy that results from having tools, which, as Keith points out, are essentially free, to be able to get on the on-ramp here. Once you're there, then you've got to grapple with, how is this? Why am I wasting my time here when I could just read the New York Times and have people who are authoritative tell me where to go? And, the problem there is, I think the New York Times is becoming one of the destination sites for analytics and network activity. So how much do we trust the New York Times? I think we trust them a lot. But, what I'm concerned about is the drop off after we leave the New York Times site. What else is out there? Or should we just, get back to work? It's a difficult question to answer, but I think it's the one that we're really asking.
So the way I think of it is a couple of levels. The one level is what you're really, I agree, creator economy is not a good label, but what it really is a personal business model. Like, what is your business model, Keith, is a good question. And if I can articulate, and it's hard to articulate, but if you can figure out how to make short-term cash to pay the bills whilst building long-term value, that's great. And if these tools can help me do that, that's also great. Now, when I get down to the specific level of what to do, so if you take something that is a hot topic like hybrid work, hybrid work is a huge topic. Will people go back to the office? Will there be an office? Is real estate still a good business for commercial real estate or not, given the trends in retail and in offices? Huge areas. What should the individual be forced to go into the office, or should there be, and is software good enough to support essentially remote work while still getting productivity? Massive areas which huge companies should care about, either because they're going to get disrupted because their software is old-fashioned and new software is going to emerge, or because they've got to figure out what to do with billions of dollars of real estate, like, say, Google. So you
just answered your question. You asked the question and then you just answered it. There's huge amounts of capital and resources and opportunity. So what part of somebody's going to do well in this. I mean, the idea that we're going to go back to the economy that existed before the pandemic, I think is laughable. We're not going to go back to it. We're in it.
And,
Into the third year of it, actually.
and the other thing is consulting organizations are going to change. The idea that Boston Consulting Group or McKinsey, blah, blah, that style of engagement makes any sense anymore, forget it. So what do all these tools mean for the nature of consulting and the power of the individual?
Yeah.
What will the next suite of software look like to support all that? We had Microsoft Office. Will there be Microsoft Consultant or Microsoft Creative, Creator Economy? Yeah, whatever.
Well,
Isn't that what Adobe is selling? Isn't that what Adobe is selling?
I'm sure that there'll be branding from Microsoft about that, but whether they're the, I think that this is a rising time which will float all boats.
I think,
But Adobe Suite is that, isn't it?
Well, only for certain things. It is that for certain things. But it's funny, I was having an email back and forth this morning with a guy called Greg Sands, who used to be at Sutter Hill Ventures. He's now got his own fund called Costanoa. And we were discussing a company that has software in this space. And he said, well, who gets disrupted? And we got talking about space-focused software, like facilities management, and task-focused software, like, say, Asana and Monday, and made the point that neither of those really fit what this speaks to, which is people-centric software, where tasks and places are just features of you and what you got to get done. And so how do you put people, I mean, and by people, I really mean teams and individuals, a bit like Slack does, but more focused on getting stuff done and where you're going to get it done and how you're going to get it done. In that software doesn't exist, to your question, Dennis. I think somebody can make a killing building that.
Yeah, I think you're right. That was a facetious question, by the way. It wasn't purely serious.
I'd say also, you're finding a lot of these people that are, I guess, the so-called content creators, piecing these stuff together to make it work for them. There's a lot of that going on. They always, if you, I go a lot of YouTube, as you guys already know, and it kills me with a lot of these videos. The first minute is like a pitch. Is subscribe, smash the notification button. If you want to, if you want to go deeper, you can do your Patreon. You can join my Discord. It's like they're naming like 20 different things, but that's because they're trying to. They don't want to wait around for a big company to try to provide a platform for everything, because there'll never be one. Because by the time it comes out, it'll be outdated, and these dudes are looking for something else.
But Brent, just to make something up, if you and Dennis said, a month from now, we're going to do a private consulting Zoom session on hybrid working and its impact on your company, and we're going to invite, I won't make up the names, but some really important people, and we're going to charge $50,000 each. And you invited us 6 to sit in almost like a board of directors to talk about the topic. I wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't sell a few tickets for $50,000 each.
I'm available the Tuesday.
Why do that? Why spend $50,000 when you can get it for free? I don't understand that.
Well, I'm just talking about, there's a line between free and paid, where there's some value in paid that isn't available for free. I don't know where that line is. It's going to be different for everyone and everything, but there is a line. Right. And I think once you step over the line, if the signal to noise ratio is good enough, price is not the problem.
But if you see what's happening in Frank's world of about AVOD versus SVOD, that's basically advertising versus subscription. It's a hybrid of the two, which leans heavily on the A part, because people who don't have any money are going to watch that because at least they're getting something for nothing.
Yeah.
They have more time than money, basically.
Yeah. So, I don't see where the vendor proposition is for building out a suite of this, a la Adobe. I think Adobe's doing very well with their moving from a software-based, CD model to a virtual model. We use one of their products, as a matter of fact, for transcription, Premiere Pro. It's excellent, and in fact, it's improving because they just released a version of it that doesn't require going back to the server, but rather stores the English and other language translation on the client and takes advantage of M1 and some of these new Apple technologies. It's like 3 times faster. And plus, we're not being monitored by a faceless corporation that we happen to be competitors with.
Unless somebody creates a software that's AVOD or ASI.
What does that mean? What do you mean?
Advertiser supported software that you get for free, but you have to go through you have to look at the commercials that they're serving to you somewhere on your screen.
Is there a missing S between A and S? What about sponsorship?
Is there?
Sponsorship and
Well,
kind of product placement is a bit in there as well.
yeah, it just struck me that could live in the software world. It certainly could live there, but I imagine it would also be a real bone of contention for a lot of people. But I don't think I've seen it. Has anyone seen anything like that? I don't know.
Public broadcast television is the nearest to sponsorship model.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it used to be a lot of sponsorship. You would have a show that started and they'd say it was sponsored by fill in the blank, and then the show would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be part of the name of the show, the United States Steel Hour.
Yeah, the Camel Nightly News.
Camel News Caravan with John Cameron Sweeney.
Nine out of 10 doctors recommend this cigarette.
Walter Cronkite lights one up and then tells the news. Is that
yeah.
what's going on?
You know who's done a good job of that is TechMeme. You go and look at TechMeme and ask the question, how is it monetized? And there's 3 things they do really well. They have these little sponsorship area. They have job listings, and they have events. And it's very organic to the content. There's nothing in there that's offensive when you're looking at it that you feel is out of scope. So it's a bit like if CRM players, if the top CRM companies rotated sponsorship, it wouldn't feel out of place. If it was only one always, it might. You know what I mean? So I think there's mines of cash available to the right programs and positioning.
I used to think that that when in the early days when Meet the Press was sponsored by GE, before GE bought the company, that it was like, well, what's going to happen when Meet the Press has to report on GE or things that happen in that world? That it wasn't until much later that you'll only get a handful of spots, and they're likely to be really big companies anyway. But it's not just one company sponsoring it, and I think that creates a problem.
I have a completely out of left field question. As you guys do all these shows, do you feel that you have like a on-screen persona that's really not your normal average kind of, when you're at home, when there's no camera on? Do you feel like you have to do something that's a little different than your normal person?
Performance. You're talking about
Nah,
performance.
this is me.
I think we use this as a way of training ourselves to an optimized view, and then try and sell it to our better halves.
Nah.
That's hard to do.
Oh, that's what I think.
Nah.
I definitely go into this zone in my brain when I'm doing That Was the Week thing with Andrew Keane, where for 30 minutes I'm kind of like, I'm kind of frozen, and I'm tied to my newsletter that week, and I'm trying to field questions, and he disagrees with me on a lot of stuff, so it's always argumentative, and I definitely am not myself, because I'm kind of in some kind of a zone that I'm not normally in.
I think it's to be serious about it. I think it depends on what you're doing and who you're doing it for. Because I feel like on the Gillmor gang, I am who I am. But when I do something that is presenting to college students or to a board of directors of a major company, or to an association, I tend to kind of zone into what they are thinking about, and that will change my presentation mode.
I say, Brent, your shtick with Paul on your show, you kind of make jokes about each other and sometimes about the guests. That's different to how you are on the gang. I'm the same as Frank. I'm on the gang, I'm just me. But on when I'm doing a show, I'm whatever I think the show version of me is.
Yeah, I tend to, for me, I tend to have roles. I think like there's, the host role, the co-host role, and here I'm not neither of those. I'm just here for the ride. So I get to kind of lay back and, and I enjoy all these different things, but it just started dawning on me. I think they're all roles that are parts of me, but I'm not doing anything that isn't part of me. That would be really weird to try to do something and be something you're not. But I was just curious how you guys handle that kind of stuff.
Well, that's performer. I mean, performers have to do that the whole time, right? I mean, it's interesting when I'm with my startup team, we just raised some money. And when you raise money, you have a narrative around the business and where you are, where you're going, how you're going to get there, and stuff like that. And I described to my team that raising money is theater, because you have to bring to life a future that hasn't yet happened for people. And the line between lying and pitching is a very thin line, as we saw with Theranos. So how can you tell the story of a future that is yet to happen and say you're going to bring it into being without performing? You kind of have to, otherwise you're not credible. On the other hand, on the gang, you shouldn't be performing at all. You better be authentic, otherwise you're not credible. So there's a massive difference between times when performance is required and times when performance gets in the way.
So I want to give, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Keith, I thought you were going to say that you needed to, because it's theater, you had to get the audience to suspend disbelief.
Well, you do have to do that as well. I mean, even though you're kind of poking me there, it is true that you do, because
Sorry, Steve.
Oh no, I'm sorry, Steve. So the Keith's got a hard stop, but I don't want to stop the conversation. In fact, I want to change it so that Keith feels like he's missing out on something as he leaves. Okay, so what about this McConnell thing?
And I am going to leave. If I got to sum up, I'd ask you also to talk about Netflix's market cap now being less than Disney Plus, and what's going on with Netflix.
Okay, well, we'll see if we can get to that.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
See
Have a
ya.
good week.
Okay, so Dennis, I'm referring to
Yeah.
the perspective that McConnell is somehow moderating, creating sustenance or a small amount of sustenance for the anti-Trump group. Do you buy any of that?
Well, I think what I see Mitch doing is the attention was taken away from him briefly by the RNC. And what he wants to do is be in the catbird seat, which means he can't let anybody get too far ahead. So he can't let the Trumpists get too far ahead of the anti-Trumpists and vice versa. So if it looks like the Trumpists are gaining, he's putting the brakes on by saying a good word for Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger.
I think it's a little more specific than that. I think what the RNC did by characterizing January 6th as, what did they say? Normal political discourse?
Normal, yeah.
Legitimate
Just like
political
we do on the
discourse.
show.
What they said, I think, from McConnell's point of view, would be toxic in a general election. It was it's catnip to the Trump faction, and that's part of the problem. You have the Republican Party, which I think gives Trump an 80% approval rating, and which is more and more concentrated on Trump, that has to face general elections and a general population that's less and less interested in Trump. And so McConnell is trying to say, look, that path is a suicide path. And his specific words are, we saw it happen. It was a violent insurrection. And for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was. That's what he said. He was very specific, specifically trying to delegitimize what the RNC was trying to legitimize.
And to what end? I mean, does he think that that's
I think to the end that he thinks that the path of going full out on Trump is going to be the path to losing control of the House and to not regaining the Senate. I think that as toxic as Trump has become, is given a new wind to the Democrats, who, in conventional wisdom, are doomed to lose control, because that's what happens to the party in power. They lose control in the midterms. Trump is making it harder and harder for that prophecy to be fulfilled. And McConnell is saying, whoa, don't go down that path, please. Because I won't get to be the majority leader in the Senate if you do.
But didn't the House leader also say, not the House leader, didn't he also agree, the Republican leader, somewhat with McConnell?
Somewhat. McCarthy is in a bigger bind. He's in a position where he can't say no to Trump. I mean, he came out very strongly immediately after the insurrection and said, "Oh, this is a bad thing," and then a week later he went down to Mar-a-Lago and kissed the ring. And he's got a whole faction of people in his caucus that are going to force him to toe the Trump line. If you look at the history of the Republican Party, especially in the House, it's been a series of one insurgency after another against the establishment. Boehner couldn't hold on to power. Remember when Eric Cantor lost his election because he was too much of a centrist? The Freedom Caucus, now the Q Caucus, is really a rabble rouser. I find it hard to understand how anybody would elect and re-elect someone like Madison Cawthorn or Taylor Greene or Boebert. I mean, I just don't understand how they can win elections, but apparently they can. And there are apparently people who enjoy electing a troll to Congress. Those people make the dynamic for Kevin McCarthy much different than the dynamic for Mitch McConnell.
I think it's interesting to see what's going on locally in the Cawthorn situation. That he may be. It's more than censured locally, but put in a position where he can't run again. I think that's interesting. It's the 14th Amendment issue.
I don't understand who you're talking about.
Madison Cawthorn, the North Carolina. I want to say it's the Board of Elections in North Carolina has the ability to keep him from being able to run, and they're talking about that. That's all I know. I see that Michael is looking that one up.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know whether they're going to be able to succeed at that. But
they're making a lot of noise about it. That's for sure. And I don't think we've seen that happen. So that's an interesting.
Again, I ask Michael, do you think that this is going to be effective, what McConnell is doing?
Do I think I didn't hear the question?
Do you think that this is going to be effective, what McConnell is doing?
I don't know what effect you think it's going to have.
Well, you described the reasons why he's trying to basically tell people that he's going to lose his job as majority leader if they go down the road of supporting Trump. Do you think that's?
So you're asking me whether the Republicans are going to retake the Senate? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm asking whether his messaging is going to be effective at forestalling the loss of his power base.
Yeah, I don't know what really what you're asking. He's not. I don't think he's in any danger of being the leader of the Senate Republicans. He's not going to be challenged. But his danger is is he the minority leader or the majority leader? I mean, his goal is to take back the Senate and be in charge.
Right. Okay. So,
I think that's why his position is a little different from Kevin McCarthy's. McCarthy may be facing a rebellion against him within his party.
Right.
McCarthy would like to be speaker.
I don't believe a word.
McCarthy has two obstacles. One is that the GOP has to retake the House, and the second is his caucus has to elect him speaker. So
but I'm asking about McConnell, not about McCarthy. I don't care.
Okay, but there are two questions. The two questions. If you're asking, will he still be the leader of the Senate Republicans? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're asking, will he become the leader of the Senate because the Republicans retake the Senate? I think the answer is to be determined.
Okay, well, that's not what I'm asking. But Frank, you have to go. You want last thoughts?
I do. Well, my last thoughts don't have anything to do with anything as important as this. But I was going to say that, there is a conversation next week. I'd like to talk a little bit about how some of the streamers are moving away from binging. I think that's an interesting move. And the other thing is Tom Brady has a Hollywood production company. Did we know that? I didn't know that. I just heard that.
Well, he better. He's out of work, isn't he?
Yeah, not. I doubt that he really needs to work. But a Hollywood production company, that's also worth a conversation.
Well, I've lost faith in his ability to win the game at the last second, since he's not in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Alrighty then. Anyway.
Thanks, Frank.
Very good show, guys. Interesting. I love the whole newsletter conversation. Terrific. I love the cat, Dennis. It was great that your cat made an appearance, and I will be watching very closely the halftime show, which comes on, I think, at like 6 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning for me. So,
okay, thank you so much.
See you guys.
Dennis, I have a question for you.
All right.
is what McConnell is doing to effectively bolster the anti-Trump movement, if there is in fact one, is he going to be successful at that?
I don't know if he's all out trying to bolster anything. I think he's you know, my view is still what I said. I think he's just trying to keep balance so that as you get closer to the election, he can pick a side, and he'll side with whoever he thinks is going to win. That's the most I can see.
Okay.
Could you define success as you're asking that, Steve? What would success look like?
Well, I found what was interesting about his comments was the degree to which it bolstered a number of people inside the Republican Party to, you know, just slow down a little bit in terms of not understanding the difference between rebellion and political discourse.
Well, you still don't see a lot of full-throated agreement with what he said. I mean, he specifically talked about two important things that the Trumpists will not let go of. One is that the election was legitimate, and the other was that there was an insurrection trying to overthrow a legitimate election. And you don't find a lot of Republicans who will make those 2 points very clearly. They will hedge. You know, they'll say, well, Biden is in the White House. They won't say that he won the election. They won't say it's legitimate. They'll still try and create some area of a penumbra of doubt under which Trump can operate with his lies about the election. So I don't see a whole bunch of them flocking to his position and saying full-throatedly, yes, the election was legitimate and Trump tried to overturn it. I mean, that's what he said. That's what he said very explicitly. And nobody's joining him in that.
You can't expect that. That's messaging for the Democrats.
Well, it's messaging not just to a Democrat, it's messaging to the people who are independent and Democrats.
Absolutely.
I mean, the issue is that the universe within the Republican Party does not match the universe outside the Republican Party.
That's true. So it is, in a sense, McConnell might have been bottom fishing.
Well, no, I think McConnell's eye is on the general election. Everybody else is looking at primaries. You know, you saw this representative from I think North Carolina, Mace, who was Trump denounced her and endorsed her opponent in the primary, even though she worked for and supported and worked on the campaign, but she did not come out and support Trump after the insurrection. And so he denounced her, and she went to New York and created a video standing in front of Trump Tower saying, "I'm a Trump supporter, and the guy that Trump is endorsing is going to lose this seat." Or the woman that Trump is endorsing is going to lose this seat. So I think the Republicans are in a little bit of a dilemma because they can't get through the primaries opposing Trump, and they can't get through the general supporting Trump.
So stay tuned until we get through the primaries, is what you're saying. I agree with that. Okay, Brent, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I have some, but it's not anything about what we just talked about the last 20 minutes.
That's okay. We're going to be off the air very soon.
Go Rams.
Seriously, is it something that you want to mention and not talk about?
No, I got other things on my mind.
Okay. All right. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor.
Thank you. Love the show, guys. Very interesting today.
I want to thank the people who've already moved on to whatever they're moving
Their
on
next
to.
meeting.
Keith Cheer, thanks, Keith. Frank Radish, thanks, Frank. Thanks to Michael Markman.
Thank you all.
Thanks to Brent Leary.
Go Rams.
Yeah, go whatever. And
Oh.
just as long as you just go, right? Is that what basically sum up? Brent will be doing a watch party on the, no, he won't. And thanks to Dennis Pombriand.
Pleasure. Thanks. Good to see you.
All right. Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.